How do you find out what you actually wanted to do in life, and how long did it take you? Yeah, so it took me quite a while. When I was younger, and this is no fault but my own, I wanted to please my parents, by either going to medical school or law school. And then I found out and I love helping people, and that's why my dad said you might be a half-decent doctor. But I went to a hospital and I checked out what it was like. I kind of shadowed somebody, and I like helping people in other ways. The whole surgery thing just wasn't for me. And then being a lawyer, I went down to Harvard Law School to check it out. I read a book called 1L by Scott Turow in 1992. I wrote the LSATs. And I just saw the movie A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise. You can't handle the truth. And I was inspired. And I went to sit on a class at Harvard Law, like I'd ever get in. I wouldn't. But you know me with my dreams. And I was so bored. And then I started shadowing other lawyers, started doing research on it. And I was like, dude, I love you if you're a civil rights lawyer. Otherwise, I'm trying to understand, do you become a jerk before you go to law school or after law school? Because I met a lot of lawyers, that just aren't the best people. The lawyers that represent me are the best, by the way. They're cool. And then I just couldn't live with myself knowing that half the time, if I go to trial, whatever, as a lawyer, I might be lying. That wasn't fun for me. And I don't think any lawyer loves their job unless they're a civil rights lawyer. If that's the case, God bless you. And then what happened was actually earlier in life, when I was in the 8th grade, they tried to fail me at school, and the 6th grade as well. And so I was trying to find myself, and obviously that killed my confidence. And they sent me in Oakville, Ontario, just outside of Toronto, to a place on Lakeshore Road there called Chisholm to see if I actually had learning disabilities. But it wasn't that. By the 9th grade, my dad did something that changed my life. He bought me a Macintosh computer. It was a Mac Plus at the time. And there was a 20 megabyte external hard drive that he bought for the house, which cost literally $1,500. God bless him for doing that. I love you, Dad. That changed my life because I realized I love using computers. I love software. I mean, look at me here nerding out with all this stuff here in this live webcast. It's just fun for me. And so that was my passion. And so my passion was also finance. I mentioned when I was younger, when I was 13, I was investing in stocks. My first stock I bought was Maple Leaf Gardens when I was 13 in 1985. And so this is just me kind of figuring it out along the way. So I figured out when I was a teenager that I loved finance, and I also loved software. And then I went to university, and I joined Accenture, where I was a technology, I was a programmer. It was fun. I loved it. I was a hardcore techie, a software engineer in the financial services division in Toronto at Accenture. And I worked in the Carolinas in the merger of Nations Bank and Bank America. I was a coder. I loved it. And then I did something stupid. I wanted to make more money, and I kind of put too much emphasis on money, which is wrong. It's one of the 10 rules. You're not supposed to do that, right? And I went to Wall Street. And I worked at Goldman Sachs, and the people were great there. It's my fault what happened. I left on very good terms after 5 years, and they were so good to me. I love them to death. And I left because I want to make more money. And so I went to a hedge fund in New York, and I did fine there, whatever. And then I was still unhappy because I want to make more money. And so this massive hedge fund called Citadel gave me a great offer. And they were good people. It was fun. But they recruited me out to San Francisco to invest in software and internet companies. And, it was better money there even. Whatever, wasn't a bunch, whatever. I'm trying to be humble here. But I wasn't happy. I was even more depressed. And I realized that something is wrong with me. And I thought, should I be taking Prozac or something? I don't know. And so for me, what I did instead was I worked out a bunch, which got me a bit happier. It released endorphins. But then after the buzz wore off from working out, I was still kind of unhappy. And I thought, is there something chemically wrong with me? I don't know. And I learned from running my hedge funds that I hate short-term investing because you're fooled by randomness. And so I did an investment in my fund, which I morphed kind of into a venture capital hybrid fund. I did my first investment in venture capital, which was Facebook, which everybody had when it was private. Please, every VC firm on the planet. Then I joined another venture capital firm, and I was a longer-term investor, but I still wasn't completely happy. And, God bless my coworkers at every company I've ever worked at. If I ever seemed, not 100% happy all the time, I wasn't miserable, but I realized something. I realized I love to teach. And I wish that earlier in life I had realized that. And when I was working in venture capital full time, during the evenings, I would teach at a bunch of universities. And yeah, I was paid for it, whatever, but I would have done it for free. I would have done it for free. I loved it so much. It was so fun helping people. And then I joined the board of this charity in East Palo Alto called the Limo Foundation. And the Limo Foundation basically helps these poor kids in East Palo Alto, where the high school graduation rate's only 40%. It's crazy. This happens in America. You can go from affluent areas to poor areas in a nanosecond. And so the Limo Foundation, what we do is we provide scholarships for these poor kids that have deadbeat fathers. No such thing as a deadbeat mother, but they have deadbeat fathers in East Palo Alto. And I started teaching them as well. And I loved it. I loved it. And one Saturday, I was teaching them a course. I threw everything I know about business into a 12-hour course, actually. It was a Saturday in January 2016. And there was a bunch of kids there. And you can go to my website, click on the charity link, and you'll see me. I'm so proud of this. I'm sorry, I got to show you. It was never about the money, but I am proud about this. What I did was I actually created this program for them in one day, these poor kids, and I called it an entire MBA in one day, or one course. And that was January 2012. And then on that Monday or Sunday, whatever, I put a camera up at home and just threw it on Udemy. One of my employees worked at Udemy, or pardon me, one of my students, Fulia Becker is her name, from the Halt International School of Business, worked there. She's great. And she asked me for a mentoring meeting. I met her at Udemy and I fell in love with it. So here's the Limo Foundation here. I put my course on Udemy and it's done fine, whatever. And so these are all the kids. They're amazing. They range from, that's me at a conference, sorry. They range from the ages of 9 to 17. And at the end, I created these CBC, these degrees for them from scratch. And this actually is the genesis for this MBA degree program that I'm creating for all of you. I'm so sorry that that's not saying skill, but I want to show you the degree, the diploma. This gave me the idea. I called it a Limo Business Scholar. And I gave them degrees at the end of that day, and they felt so proud and confident, and that's what teachers are supposed to do, and parents, is to instill a sense of happiness and confidence in their students, et So I guess I love to teach. That's what I love to do. I love to do it. And the Dalai Lama had great advice. He said, the problem with Western society is that we spend all of our life sacrificing our health in order to make money. And at the end of our lives, we sacrifice all of our money in order to maintain our health. And then we look back and we realize we never really lived to begin with. It's not about the money. It's about making the world a better place and doing what you love doing you're passionate about, doing what you would do for free. I would teach for free. I mean, these calls I do, we go 6 to 8 hours usually on these things nonstop. I just love it. I do this for free. It's just so much fun for me. So you got to ask yourself a couple questions. You got to ask yourself when you're trying to think of what your passion is. Number one, what would I do for free? And go on a long walk and figure this out, because when you go on a long walk, you release serotonin and you think better too, which is why I exercise in the afternoon, so I can think better in the afternoons. So number one, go on a walk and ask yourself, what would I do for free? Okay, that's your passion. That's what you should do. That's your raison d'être. I wish I started teaching earlier in life. Number two, I want you to ask yourself this. If I was given a month off today and I cannot travel, I cannot work, and I cannot study, what would you do with your time? And the third thing is, who's a rock star to you in business? Is it Sir Richard Branson? Is it Elon Musk? Is it Bill Gates? Is it Oprah Winfrey? Is it J.K. Rowling, the brilliant author? And whoever it is, if you look up to them and aspire to be them, I want you to turn your idol into your rival. And you can figure out how to do this because all these successful people, they usually write autobiographies or biographies are written about them, or you can watch biographies on them on YouTube by searching their name. And they provide their blueprints so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can do what they've already done because their guard is down now that they're extraordinarily successful. I'm sure they would have shared their ideas with you earlier when they weren't as successful, but their guard is down. and they share all their ideas with you. And so, I want you to please always read books or listen to audiobooks from audible.com, for example, on successful people and learn from them. What are their blueprints for success? And it's my essence of kind of who I am as well. Whenever I meet somebody successful, more successful than me, which is all the time, of course, I always ask them for one piece of advice on what made them successful. And what's one piece of advice that's not taught in business school? And right here, this is a book I wrote called 101 Crucial Lessons They Don't Teach You in Business School. And basically, after I would meet with very successful people, I'd ask them for one piece of advice on what made them, successful. I met with Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and a lot of people, especially CEOs in tech. I met with all the big ones just in my job. And so I got more joy out of asking them why they're successful rather than trying to figure out how to invest in their companies. I do both, of course, right? So for example, this one here is from the CEO of a software company called Splunk. And the CEO's name is Godfrey Sullivan. I met him when he was the CEO of Hyperion. I was an investor there. Oracle bought that company. But Godfrey Sullivan said, I always get it wrong, sorry. And he used to work at Apple too. He said, you want to praise in public and criticize only in private. And that's a very simplistic management approach that works. And simple works best, less is always more. And this is stuff they don't teach you in business school as well. So anyway, the bottom line is that I love to teach, Kunal. It's a great question. It took me, I guess, until around 40, actually later than 40, until I started teaching. And I wish I'd done it earlier in life. And for everybody in this call, please try to live your life in your own terms and do what you want to do in life and just have the courage to be you and nobody else and do what you want to do. Otherwise, if you live your life to try to please other people, you'll always be their prisoner.